Hello there, very good evening. This is the weekend edition of Primetime News on TV1. On behalf of the News First, the voice of the people, I'm Martin Satyanesan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for this evening. Three Japanese military ships reach Sri Lanka. India's foreign secretary arrives in the country. Will organic fertilizer be imported from India? Trade unions brace for joint action to protect ports, petroleum and power sectors. Sri Lanka tells the EU it will amend the Prevention of Terrorism Act in a certain period. Trade unions respond to Minister Sarath Weerasekara.
Sri Lanka police Sarath Weerasekara police
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
On to your top story this evening. India's Foreign Secretary Shri Harshvardhan Shringla reached the country a short while ago. He is to meet President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa. The Indian Foreign Secretary will visit the Temple of the Tooth Relic in Kandy and also tour Trincomalee and Jaffna later.
The Hindu newspaper reported that Indian Foreign Secretary Shri Harshvardhan Shringla will hold meetings with the Sri Lankan government and other parties on Monday. The report adds, this would be a chance for the Indian delegation to assess Sri Lanka's requirement for economic assistance and vaccine exports due to the COVID-19 crisis that has affected tourism and caused a drop in foreign exchange reserves. It notes that Sri Lanka and India, that along with Maldives form the Colombo Security Conclave, will discuss efforts to counter threats like terrorism, drugs and piracy. They are also expected to take forward a proposal to include Mauritius, the Seychelles and Bangladesh in the security dialogue. The report cites an official saying that India's Indo-Pacific policy or expected developments with the launch of the Australian-UK-US Security Alliance, which includes nuclear-powered submarines, are not expected to be discussed.
The deal that allowed the Indian Oil Corporation to gain control of the Trincomalee oil tank farm and more than 100 fuel stations in the country is to expire in 2024. Petroleum trade unions point out that the deal may be extended after the Indian Foreign Secretary's visit to the country. United Trade Unions expressed several views regarding the matter today.
The licenses that were given illegally to the Indian company will expire by 2023. When the Petroleum Corporation is about to face a favorable time period, they are trying to amend the deal in secrecy. We will not allow that. According to reliable sources, a bill on this will be presented to Parliament. We believe what they are trying to do is handing over the oil tanks to an Indian company and establish scandalous companies. They come to power for 5 years and start selling resources by using geopolitics as an excuse. Then another party takes over and sells what is remaining by citing geopolitics. This is a problem for the people of this country. Is Sri Lanka the only country with geopolitical issues? Ensure that the tour is just an observational one. If the Indian Foreign Secretary or Indian delegates or other representative of companies come here on inspection tours, we believe that the minister is doing this behind the backs of trade unions. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's High Commissioner to India, Milinda Moragoda, has said he hopes India can carry out strategic projects in Sri Lanka. He had made these remarks in an interview with the Hindu newspaper.
Sri Lanka's track record has not been good apart from the ECT. The government has backtracked on the Trincomalee oil tank farms project and the Mattala airport. There is a sense in India that Sri Lanka is hesitant to go ahead with projects promised to India.
I think that is wrong. I mean, the Adani port is one where from the moment President Gotabaya Rajapaksa announced the decision for the WCT, it was a matter of months. In fact, that the deal was signed 1 month earlier than it was due to be signed. It was actually ready to be signed early November. I hope that we can build such strategic projects in ports, oil and gas, renewable energy with a common grid and the digital area. One area we are looking at seriously is India's Aadhaar card project. We will move sometimes 1 step back, sometimes 3 steps forward. That is how it works. They are attempting to amend the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation Act of 1961 in a hurry. Why is it? Because New Fortress cannot be granted access to store LNG without amending the act. The license of the IOC will expire in 2023. Don't attempt to extend the license by amending this act. We want Minister Udaya Gammampila to know that the American citizens, including the Minister of Finance and those who are loyal to him, will definitely strip you of your nationalist veil. We want the minister to immediately withdraw the decision to amend this act. The Foreign Secretary is coming here to extend the deal for the oil tank farm. Do not let them strip you naked. Do not act as a slave. Be a guardian of your nation. We will stand by you if you act in that manner.
Meanwhile, the Petroleum, Port and Electricity Trade Unions Collective against the sale of national assets held a discussion with the members of the Janatha Vimukti Peramuna today. If a person is trying to earn a living by selling off our national assets, we are against it. The opposition has always stood against selling off national assets, but when they come into power, they brand those as investment projects. We cannot continue this cycle. We think that this family is better in selling these assets than Ranil. If the government does not respond and stop these actions, we are left with no other option but to take trade union action against it. We are not involved with any political agendas. Therefore, we will definitely defeat these actions of the government. Instead of following a correct diplomatic foreign policy, our country follows and caters to the policies of other foreign countries. The impact created by these foolish moves will definitely affect the people and the future generations to come. We are happy to see that all these movements are coming together to stand against these actions. As the JVP, we are ready to provide our fullest cooperation in this regard. The National Bhikkhu Front has warned of problems that can arise by vesting national resources with foreign parties. They acted to sell off the Kerawalapitiya power plant. A betrayal bigger than this has never occurred in the country's history. This can exert an influence that is bigger than when the British, Dutch and the Portuguese invaded our country. The West Terminal was given to India before this even died down. The country has been caught in a political power struggle between countries. The rulers have allowed the country to fall under China. When the country falls under China, we have to give the US what they want. As dual citizens, these rulers will return to the other countries after governing for about 5 or 10 years. But when the innocent people country are caught up in the global political struggle, the people will end up being helpless, regardless of who comes into power and how they govern the country. Therefore, the rulers will have to change this economic system.
While India's Foreign Secretary has arrived in Sri Lanka, 3 Japanese military ships reached Colombo today. The ships will remain in the country until Monday.
3 warships which belong to the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force arrived in the port of Colombo on an operation today. Now in the background you all can see the multi-purpose operation destroyer named as Kaga. Kaga was accompanied to the port of Colombo by 2 other destroyers named as Murasami and Fuyusuki, and it was welcomed to the port of Colombo by the Sri Lanka Navy in accordance with their naval traditions. The 3 ships which arrived in the port of Colombo from Australia today is set to take part in a naval operation together with the Sri Lanka Navy and is set to sail back on Monday.
The military ships reached Sri Lanka after a joint maritime exercise with the US Navy. The USNS Yukon ship of the US had joined the exercise.
Our sea is invaluable to the entire world. Our sea is full of unlimited resources. Our sea is the heritage that will pass on to our children. Let's protect our sea from foreign influence. Let's use our name and call it our sea.
The Sea of Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka's changes to the Prevention of Terrorism Act are to be reviewed next year. The Sri Lanka EU Joint Commission is to review the changes when it meets.
The European Union Sri Lanka Working Group on Good Governance, Rule of Law and Human Rights met on Wednesday. At the meeting, Sri Lanka had said it would bring the Prevention of Terrorism Act in line with international standards. The need to follow these standards when countering terrorism and extremism was highlighted at the meeting. The 20th Amendment, judicial independence and separation of powers had been discussed as well. The 2 sides had agreed on how important it would be for independent institutions to function effectively. They had also agreed on the importance of giving space for civil society. The European Union had said it would support Sri Lanka in these efforts. Meanwhile, the working group discussed matters on minorities and measures to address hate speech. The European Union had also repeated its opposition to the death penalty.
Meanwhile, Public Security Minister Sarath Weerasekara expressed the following views on teachers' trade unions.
When the economy has been affected and the country remains open during a pandemic, if trade unions or any group stages strikes and protests, I will have to take harsh measures against them as the Minister of Law and Order for the well-being of the people. This will be done for the benefit of everyone. If another wave takes place due to the public gatherings and protests, we will have to face a serious problem.
2 people who attended a protest by trade unions representing teachers and principals on the 4th of August were summoned to the Fort Police Station today. They were asked to appear and record a statement.
Why are they being summoned? We know that this is based on orders from the top. Is this Sarath Weerasekara's law which is being implemented? Who is Sarath Weerasekara? What powers does he have? What right does he have to intimidate the police? What powers does he enjoy to act like this? We know that a team of European Union officials are in Sri Lanka. They are evaluating the human rights situation. What rights does he have to act like this during this period? We are asking to stop the suppression that is being carried out by Sarath Weerasekara's police. Is this the Sri Lanka police or Sarath Weerasekara's police which is engaging in suppression? We cannot be suppressed by any means. We know what you did at the cabinet meeting. We know that you had asked to remove teachers and principals from service. That is the harsh action that you want to take. But those harsh measures can't suppress our struggle. We wish to tell the government that the united struggle of teachers' unions is decisive. Therefore, provide a solution to this. We wish to say that these problems can't be resolved like this.
Yesterday was World Children's Day. While Sri Lanka celebrated Children's Day, did we ever stop to think of the millions of children across the globe and here in Sri Lanka who are unable to celebrate life's greatest pleasures? How can those little hearts bear the pain of a sudden loss of a parent or similar tragedies? This is the story of Anita.
Team Newsfirst travelled to the Kochikade shrine the very next day after the devastating April 21st attacks to locate a child who was seen abandoned opposite the shrine. The child, named Anita, had lost her mother to the attack, while her father had also sustained serious injuries. According to information Newsfirst had received, the mortal remains of Anita's mother had been transported to her home in Passara after the attack. Tracing her location, we received reports that little Anita was now living in Ganemulla at a home donated to her family by the Catholic Church. Anita, who is now 6.5 years of age, resides in her home with her father and grandmother. On that fateful day 2 years ago, Anita had travelled to the Kochikade shrine with her family to pick her grandmother, who attended the Easter Sunday Mass. Anita's father has been maimed since the attack and is unable to secure employment to support his family. He continues to live with shrapnel in his body. Their family is surviving with the support of the Catholic Church and relatives. Let's serve justice to the perpetrators of this heinous crime for a lifetime of grief they have caused to our children.
We'll continue with more local stories after this short commercial break. Stay tuned.
TV1 News First, main sponsor.
Students complete the ACBT University Entry Foundation in 8 months for 288,000 rupees.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Welcome back to the news. Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa has alleged that the government has spiraled Sri Lanka's community into an artificial chaos.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa donated essential medical equipment to the Buttala Regional Hospital today under the Vipaksha Husmak program.
The current government is following a two-faced policy. One minister says we will not accept that consignment of organic fertilizer. The next day another minister says it will be accepted. What is this joke? They are playing with the lives of people. Thousands lost their lives because they delayed the importation of vaccines. They didn't allow a systemic policy even after the vaccines were imported. There was no vaccine protocol. Senior citizens were not prioritized. The country is helpless at this point. The government has led the community to an artificial disarray.
What is the government's solution to the fertilizer crisis?
The Agriculture Minister's statement yesterday indicated that efforts to import organic fertilizer have not been called off. There is no delay. We can provide fertilizer required by farmers for the Maha season. The company that has sold fertilizer from China has accepted that it was a mistake. They have agreed to correct it. We are also discussing with India. We will import some fertilizer from India as well. We will not import fertilizer that has bacteria which is harmful to animals or plants. If we receive the fertilizer that we need, we will accept it. This government made a stubborn decision. They are continuing to stand by that. That's the problem. The government knows that people can't cultivate without nitrogen or potassium. They are trying to import organic fertilizer by spraying nitrogen on it. Otherwise, they are trying to import nitrogen as a liquid. Regardless of its state, nitrogen will remain the same. We wish to tell Minister Mahindananda to study the periodic table. The periodic table is not taught For students of grade 8, a person must reach at least grade 10 to study that. Farmers must receive fertilizer and pesticides before their fields are supplied water. Don't test the patience of farmers. Farmers don't want to be disrespected. Some farmers had arrived at this location in search of fertilizer. They point out that the fertilizer provided by the government for tea cultivations in Kandagolla Badulla is not sufficient.
The rice crisis has troubled people as much as the fertilizer crisis. Rice mill owners are selling rice at their own rates after the government cancelled a ceiling price.
How
can we rely on a government that cannot control a few stubborn businessmen? The president has neglected his duties by allowing those business to loot the people of the nation. At this point, a Ministry of Trade is not required. Sri Lanka is looking like a country in South Africa that is controlled by crime lords.
අප්‍රිකානු රටවල තත්ත්වයකට ශ්‍රී ලංකාවත් පත්වෙමින් තියෙන බව ඉතාමත් පැහැදිලි.
අතිගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමා අද ලංකාවට පැමිණෙනවා.
The president will return to the country today. At tomorrow's cabinet meeting, the president will make a final decision on the process of supplying rice in the country. I think if a person is trying to earn a profit of 50 rupees from a kilo of rice, especially during these trying times, those sinners will definitely go to hell.
Do you remember?
56,000 tons of garlic at the Colombo port were released to Satasa to be sold at reasonable rates. This was done without notifying the importers. But on the 9th of September 2021, a stock of garlic disappeared from the warehouse of the Satasa outlet in Valisara. It was later found at a businessman's warehouse. The garlic had been sold at 156 rupees a kilo. The transaction had not been recorded properly. Based on the wholesale price of garlic at the time, the businessman may have earned more than 10 million rupees in profit through the scam. Several officers were sent on compulsory leave while some were arrested. What happened to the garlic scam?
Do you remember?
On the 14th of October 2020, the import tariff on sugar was dropped from 50 rupees to 25 cents. Although there were 67 businesses, only one firm benefited through this. The firm in question, which only paid a tariff of 25 cents to the authorities, sold sugar to Satasa at between 125 to 127 rupees. Eventually, Satasa sold the sugar to the people at 85 rupees. Although many reveal that this scam caused a loss of more than 15 billion rupees to the state, no proper action was taken. What measures have been taken on these illegal transactions?
Do you remember? While some earn massive profits through fraud, some people are suffering without a proper bridge. Although the foundation stone for this bridge was laid many times for 15 years, construction activities are yet to begin. As a result, around 40 families in the Kumariyamada village use 2 logs to cross the Kanangama Canal.
Please build this bridge. We have been crossing this bridge for a long time. When water levels rise, it is difficult for us. We are old. School children cross this as well. We have spent our life doing this, but build it for our children.
If the bridge is not constructed soon, it will not be long before the villagers place 2 more logs to cross the canal.
Meanwhile, popular singer Johanni Di Silva has been injured during a concert tour in India.
Johanni Di Silva, who gained global fame through her rendition of the Manike Magehite song, is currently participating in the Supermoon concert in Hyderabad and Gurugram in India. Johanni had been injured during the first concert in Gurugram on Thursday. On Facebook, Johanni said she accidentally hit her face on a guitar during the show, but she is not in a serious condition. Johanni is expected to perform at the second concert in Hyderabad. Fashion model Chula Padmendra Kumara Patirana was summoned to the Criminal Investigations Department today. She said she was questioned on how she relates to a journalist named Kirti Ratnayaka, who is under custody.
Journalists contact us often. It is not only Kirti Ratnayaka. Many journalists contacted us at that time. I remember even international journalists contacted us. Since I haven't done anything wrong as a citizen, I came to the CID and provided a statement. It's a joke. It was for a telephone call. We wish to tell the President that we worked hard to support him. We saw several things happening in the past, but we never saw them being summoned to the CID. I am just an ordinary person. If we are being summoned for phone calls with journalists, this is hilarious. I am not that insane to visit the gallows while being drunk. I wish to confirm that it was not me. I haven't seen that minister. I don't even know him.
Why did the government cancel several gazettes outlining various restrictions? Minister Namal Rajapaksa responded to this in Veerakatiya today.
We are making only temporary decisions to strengthen the country's economy. Therefore, we will have to make timely decisions. Those decisions are made for the people's benefit and to manage the country's economy. On one hand, we have to listen to the farmer. On the other hand, the government must protect the consumer.
Economists are raising concerns on attempts to rebase the country's GDP. The central bank says this would be done to reflect the true size of the economy.
The gross domestic product, known as the GDP, provides an economic snapshot of the country. It highlights the total value of all finished goods and services. Countries fix the GDP value of a certain year as a base to measure the economic performance in other years. The UN recommends countries to rebase the GDP once in every 5 years. Currently, Sri Lanka uses the GDP recorded in 2010 as the base. An official at the Statistics Department told Newsfirst that 2015 will be chosen as the new base, but economists are warning that it can have negative impacts.
If our GDP is rebased and if the size of the economy would say double, our debt numbers would simply come down by half. But it's not a development in Sri Lanka, because at the same time, all other numbers like the government revenue to GDP, government expenditure to GDP, consumption to GDP, investment to GDP, all these numbers will come down by half. Sri Lanka's per capita income in terms of GDP will double instead. It does not mean that Sri Lanka, the welfare level of Sri Lanka would have improved, because we are still having the same level of economy, same level of well-being and same level of consumption. This is just a statistical artifact. It should not be interpreted as an improvement in the economic affairs of the country.
Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has said he is retiring from politics. He also says that he will not stand for vice president in next year's election.
Last month, Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte said he would run for the vice presidency in 2022. The country's constitution bars him from a second term as president, but he now says that he will withdraw as, quote-unquote, the overwhelming sentiment of the Filipinos is that I am not qualified. Duterte came to power in 2016 promising to crush crime and fix the country's drug crisis. Critics say he has encouraged thousands of extrajudicial killings of suspects in what he calls the war on drugs. Duterte's withdrawal comes amid speculation that his daughter could run for president. Sara Duterte, the mayor of the southern city of Davao, has led every opinion poll conducted this year. Last month, she had said that only either her father or herself would stand in next year's election.
All British citizens arriving in India will face a 10-day compulsory quarantine period from Monday. Their vaccination status won't be taken into account. It comes after the UK imposed similar rules for residents of several countries, including India. From October 4th, all UK nationals arriving in India from the UK, irrespective of their vaccination status, will have to undertake 3 COVID-19 PCR tests and mandatory quarantine at home or in the destination address for 10 days after arrival in India. Described as discriminatory and even colonist, the UK government has faced intense backlash over its refusal to recognize visitors as vaccinated unless they receive their shots in a handful of select countries. India's Foreign Secretary Harsha Shringla called the rules discriminatory and warned that reciprocal action may be warranted. The UK adjusted its policy to include the Covishield shot widely used in India as an approved vaccine, but India isn't on the list of acceptable places to receive a dose. As a result, people who received Covishield in the UK count as vaccinated, while those who got it in India do not. In your sports news, South Africa has ended their poor rugby championship run as they beat New Zealand 31-29 today. However, it was not enough to prevent the All Blacks from winning the 2021 Rugby Championship. That will bring to a close this edition of Primetime News on TV1. For details of the stories and much more, simply log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. For the News First, the voice of the people, I'm Martin Satyanesan, along with sign language interpreter Brian D. Cruz. You take care and good night.